Hi everyone, I'm Deborah and welcome to the Alchemy of Love Exploring Inner Healing for Healthy Relationships podcast. I'm an Akashic Records reader, angel communicator, and channeler, intuitive artist, and intuitive development coach. I'm also passionate about trauma healing, and in this podcast, I talk about energy healing in yourself, in your relationships, attachment styles, codependency, cluster B personality disorders, toxic relationships, feminine energy, polarity, but also metaphysics, soul contracts, psychic energy, and more. So this
Okay.
week I have a guest, and it is Paige. And some of you may already know Paige of Wands, or you have a bunch of different names.
Yeah,
Introduce yourself.
yeah. So I have changed my name to Purpose with Paige. It was Paige of Wands, but that account that I had going got hacked. So I kind of had to reestablish myself because I couldn't use that same name. So right now it's Purpose with Paige. I plan on staying with that.
But it sounds good. I like it. It's a good
Thank
name.
you. Yes, thank you. Thank you. I had some help, so it took me a minute to come up with it, but I think it sums up everything that I do. So I do tarot readings, I do drawings. I well, that's basically like the gist of it, but I also like to include like awareness around mental health. I'm not like a psychologist or anything like that. I just have experience and I've taken some psychology classes. So I like to include those in tarot readings. So it brings kind of like that reality into the spiritual aspect of things. So it feels a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
grounded. Um,
Yeah.
so, so I'll talk a lot about my experiences too, what we're going to be doing right now. Talking about, our relationships with certain types of people and attachment
Mm-hmm.
styles. So
Because
I
that
like
is
to do that.
exactly why I created this podcast. It's called The Alchemy of Love, Exploring Inner Healing for Healthy Relationships, because I like to weave psychology and spirituality together in this podcast. Because most people know me as an Akashic Records reader, channeler, but I'm also
Mhm.
really passionate about psychology when it comes to childhood development, attachment styles, codependency, personality disorders, all that stuff.
Yes. Especially
So, yeah.
well, yeah, like especially when people they're not like aware of what they're navigating. Cause I know there for a while, I'm doing like readings with clients that have a lot of these relationships with people who have abuse. And there was a point in that where I had to really look at my own relationship and see what was going on there because me doing tarot readings was also a distraction, and not to sound like negative, but it was distracting me from what was going on in my relationship, and I just had to take a hard look at myself and
Hmm.
practice what I preached. So there was
Yeah.
that. um
I feel
but
like in this field, we also get clients that resonate with the stuff that we are going through.
yes, yeah, so they resonate. If they don't at that certain point, there may be a point in your past where it did resonate, where you can help them navigate it, or even you'll come across it. From my own experience, I come across it in the future. And then I'm like, oh, I had a client with this same experience. Like, what did I tell them? How can I integrate
Yeah.
what I taught them into my own life? So, yeah, I definitely experienced that 100%.
Hmm. So let's tell the people that are listening, the listeners, what we're going to be talking about. So we're going to be talking about narcissism, manipulation, gaslighting, trauma bonds, and all that stuff. And that is, yeah, basically toxic relationships. And I know some people, they're like, oh, you're talking about that stuff so much lately. Why are you talking about that all the time? Like, yeah, but it's coming to me, all this stuff. And I have clients that have these problems. And it seems like I'm supposed to be talking about this stuff. And then I hear from you, I hear from other people, people that I didn't know were in a trauma bonded relationship. They were in an abusive situation. And then all of a sudden, you hear that these people were with a narcissist or with somebody that was really abusive. So
Mm-hmm.
it happens way more than we realize, I think.
Yeah. And a lot of people blame themselves too for letting themselves getting into that situation. Because I know for me, I did. I'm like, I'm supposed to be coaching people out of these situations. How did someone like me who has more awareness get sucked into this reality too? So I had to take a lot of time for myself to realize like it happens to the most strongest. Like that's what they're attracted to. They're attracted to
Mhm.
people that have these strong personalities. They feed off of it because they take these certain personality traits of yours and they make it their own. They're basically stealing your identity. And that was a big part of my experience in it.
Yeah, because they kind of see you as this trophy. You are an extension of them. You're not you. You become basically you are one identity, and when they can get somebody to completely isolate from their family, to completely isolate from friends, and then they feed off of that. You are supply, and that is something that they do. And we don't want to believe that the people that we care about view us as supply, but that is how their brain works, and it is a trauma reaction to what they went through themselves when they were younger.
Exactly. There's a lot of there was a lot of things in my relationship that made me question whether I could even label him as a narcissist, because it was so much like back and forth where he would reflect myself back to me, and it was like, oh, well, maybe he's not so bad after all. And then I would like forgive him, and then he would play on his mental health a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I still don't really like to throw around the words narcissist because everybody has a little bit of narcissistic tendencies, whether they're aware of it or not. I mean, I think the purpose is becoming aware of it and how to make sure that you're living your best life, not trampling on other people with, you know, what traits that you have and display. So there was, I don't know, like I don't know how you want to start this. If you want me to start telling my story of how it all started, um, but basically, it was really hard to get out of that relationship because I lost my identity completely, and I had to
Mm-hmm.
recreate my whole entire self again.
Yeah.
And I saw him during the divorce that for him to win me back or um, get on my good side, he would reflect all those good traits that I had about me. He would start showing the empathy exactly how I shown it. And
Mm-hmm.
it was, I had to tell myself, this isn't him. This isn't really him. This is his mask, that
Yeah.
I can't fall for this because essentially he's just being me right now and
Mm-hmm.
reflecting. And all I'm doing is falling for myself when I just need to get away from it and not fall back into the pattern.
Yeah. Yeah, first of all, I want to say thank you for for being on this podcast talking about all of this, because this is really not easy to do. And it took me years after my story, which is very similar to your story, to start talking about this in in public, in videos, because very much like what you're saying now, I was nobody. I was completely broken down to nothing, and
Mhm.
I basically was only an extension of him. And
Mhm.
that's how this trauma bond is created. It is created slowly until you are nothing but an extension of, well, narcissist or person that is the toxic person in the relationship. So, yeah. And then you
Yeah,
have to suddenly realize, oh, I am my own person. And then you see that this manipulation, gaslighting, all this stuff, it really built up very slowly. And you see it, like once you see it, you cannot unsee it anymore.
exactly. And the way that I had to see it because I would trick myself out of it. Um, so the only way that I could really see it for what it was that I started journaling. And then even that though was a little bit iffy because I would look back on it and be like, well, I just let my emotions get to me. Because one thing that he told me all the time is I'm being over dramatic. I'm being too sensitive.
Yeah.
You're just in your head. I heard that all the time. You're just in your head. So if I would read back on my journal entries when I was really upset, I would tell myself the same thing that he said. You're just being in your head. It's really not
Yeah.
as bad as it seems.
Mm-hmm.
So my biggest thing that I did for myself that helped me was I started recording. I recorded our conversations anytime that I could. And then
Mm-hmm.
looking at my reaction and his reaction, I was able to see it from observing point of view and
Yeah.
neutral perspective than actually being in the situation. And that made me see like I'm looking at like what I would normally see from clients. I'm like, what would I tell them? It's
Yeah.
time to get out.
That's what
So
I did. I would secretly record fights because I could already tell. You can tell because you're always walking on eggshells. So you can
yeah,
see when something is about to explode. And I did the same thing. And then you listen to it when you are not in this fried state of mind, when you are not all over the place. And then you can hear the contrast, how you
mhm.
are trying to constantly put out this fire, calm the situation down. And then you can also hear the gaslighting, and you can suddenly hear the blame shifting and how you are being made out to be the crazy one.
Oh
And
yeah, that's my favorite part.
yeah, and then the
I
thing
heard
is
that
with
a lot.
people, they have to understand that the years that follow after you leave an abusive partner are going to be hard because
Yeah,
you are going to have to completely reinvent yourself. You're going to see all the times where you thought you were crazy, that you were the sane one. There was nothing wrong with you. And
yes.
the post traumatic stress that a lot of people will have from all of a sudden being in a relaxed environment, in a non threatening environment, where literally the amygdala that has been basically the amygdala swells up in the brain from cortisol, stress hormone, and it has to shrink again. But that takes a while, it takes about 2 years. So during that time, you are suddenly going to have hormonal, chemical, all kinds of reactions, and you're going to have to let go of these trauma responses, stress responses, and you're going to notice in yourself that you were actually in survival mode this whole time.
Mhm. Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that part of the brain also serves part of the memory, right?
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah.
has effect on the memory. Yeah. So that relationship for long now. So I'm actually navigating a lot of those things. Um, I'm still in that healing phase. And one thing that I noticed with recreating my identity is I went from not working at all and having to go into a job where I hadn't worked in 7 years. And I had this self doubt, but my memory was so bad, and it still is. I can tell that it's getting better, but my job requires a lot of memory. So when somebody would ask me something, I couldn't recall anything. It was like this, it still is like this short term memory loss. So I'm writing everything down and recording everything just so I can keep things straight because I feel like my memory just completely went. And I think that also helps and serves in a way to create your own identity again because
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to be that person anymore. So I
Yeah.
really think that it's kind of like it's a blessing in disguise. So it's like you can just let that other person be you. Let them be you, because you don't have to be that person that you were anymore. You can completely be somebody new. And so, yeah, it's a little difficult that I'm not as efficient with my worth ethic that I was previously before this relationship, because I was very sharp, very on things. And now it's taken me a little minute, like a little bit, where somebody asks me something and I'm just like, give me just a second. Let me think about it. If not, I got it in my notes. Let me just go look. So
Yeah.
it makes me a little scattered as well.
But
But
I
yeah, that's
think
something that
that
I'm working
will
through.
get better. It's probably going to just take a little while, and I think it'll get better. And the same thing with longer term memory loss, because what happens a lot when you are in these really stressful situations with this person is that you dissociate from your body and you completely forget all about the event. And I had a bunch of repressed memories come back about a year ago that I completely just forgot, things that I didn't remember that were so traumatizing, that I completely just forgot. And I started seeing them again because I was finally allowing myself to be in a relaxed environment. And it started all coming back. And then you think, am I making this up? Where is this coming from? How could I have forgotten about all of these things? And then people think that they're losing their minds. So it's really important to find other
Yeah,
people, to talk to other people
exactly.
that have been in these situations.
I know that I've reached out to you in certain parts where I felt like I was losing my mind. I'm like, am I crazy? Am I the crazy one?
Mm-hmm.
Am I the narcissist? I would
Yeah.
question that a lot. I would also obsess about, because I often heard, um, he would tell me that I'd have a personality disorder or I would have a mood disorder.
Yeah.
And it really was reactive abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so like I would spend a lot of my time researching on psychology and taking these quizzes online, like what's wrong with me? Am I borderline personality?
Yeah.
Am I the narcissist? Am I this and that? Like, is what he's saying is true? And I'm still working through that to feel not crazy, because part of me still kind of feels like that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I remember I was doing the same thing, and this was before I had this entire spiritual awakening, because this is in 2016. Um, and that is like I am also grateful on a soul level, on an energetic level for this relationship, because this was my catalyst into spiritual awakening. And
mm,
I remember that I was constantly self-reflecting, going, am I the one that's crazy? Because he would say things like, look at what you're doing, look at how you're behaving in front of our child. Because I would be quiet, I would not respond, I would not react until he was pushing me like for 10 minutes, and I couldn't leave, I couldn't avoid the situation. I couldn't walk away until I snapped. And that's
mm-hmm,
then he would
yeah,
like completely flip the script and be like, "What's wrong with you? Are you crazy? I'm gonna take your child away from you. Do you see how you're acting in front of your child?" And then I was like, then you go into this frozen state and you freeze and you think you can't think anymore. And that's how the trauma bond is created. They basically get you to this state where you go numb, where you go
yeah.
completely numb.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've definitely felt that. And that's part of that dissociation too. It's
Yeah.
like that coping mechanism. I know that I still tend to dissociate, um, which I become more aware of now. But like you said, that was a catalyst for you for your awakening. I feel like I've had several awakenings. I feel like I've had awakening with my near death experience when I was 8. And it's just been like these different layers of awakening. And this last one really made me awaken to my own attachment style and how I was lacking in giving myself love and value. And that's why I appreciate the relationship for what it was, because it essentially got me to this point where I don't need anything but myself. I don't need anything on the outside of me to, give myself what I need in this life. So I appreciate that. That I believe that relationship with him was very, very necessary. It's unfortunate of the things that me and my kids had to go through, but
Mm-hmm.
I also feel like it's also something that's going to awaken them at an even younger age than what I was,
Yeah.
because they're even more aware now. And we talk about like why people behave like this. You don't have to take it personal.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to learn that in the relationship for my own sanity to not take things personally anymore. Because if I
Yeah.
did, he would have pushed me to the point where I would have been crazy. I really would have.
Yeah.
Um, it's just, it's just like this weird space to be in, to be aware of what's going on, and also having all these human emotions attached to it as
Mm-hmm.
well. It's like, how do you navigate this? So you really have to kind of pull yourself out of the situation at an emotional level and basically become numb just to start detaching yourself from it. So I think that even these
Yeah.
trauma responses are very serving in that, as unfortunate as they are.
Yeah. Because that's what I told people. I have a webinar about this. It's called Celestial Understanding of Traumatic Soul Contracts, and it kind of weaves the energetics and psychology of this whole thing together with hormonal physical responses. And like that, your body will literally protect you. It goes into survival mode because you would just from shock, you wouldn't be able to handle the treatment
Mm-hmm.
that you are receiving at that point. You just
Yeah.
couldn't be able, if you would fully experience everything, like some of these things that I dissociated from, that I completely forgot. If I would have been fully present, I would have probably just gone into shock or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. And I know that us, in the spiritual community, that we try to be aware and really pay attention to how we react. And, like you said, you even had a little bit of reactive abuse. You would be silent. And then you would, after they just push and push and push, then you're all of a sudden the crazy one. And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like if I wasn't at least somewhat aware, that I would be everything that he told me that I was. I would end up being crazy. I would end up losing everything, going off the deep end. Who knows where I would be at? So, yeah, I absolutely agree with everything you're saying. Your story sounds so similar to mine, and I
Yeah.
know that there's a ton of other people out there that reach out, that are going through the same thing and in that trauma cycle. Where, I mean, I talked to one girl where it's like super good, and then it's not, and like
Yeah.
something wild happens, and then she thinks
Mm-hmm.
she's crazy and she needs to go get help, and it's like it really is the opposite. It's really, you just need to move out of it and let him figure that out if he wants to, because it's not doing you any good.
Yeah.
um
Yeah, and that's
so
the thing that people have to understand. These relationships are full of extreme highs and extreme lows. That is what makes this bond, this traumatic bond, so strong. Because each time that there is this very deep low, then you want to fix them, you want to make it better for them, you can heal them, blah 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 blah, all the stupid stuff that you tell yourself, oh, I can make it better. And you kind of put yourself on the back burner, and you don't really care about your own needs anymore because you're going to go fix this person. And then as a result, they reward you with this extreme high. And suddenly for a week or two, this relationship is amazing, it's the best thing in the world. They shower you with gifts, with compliments and all the stuff, and then slowly it starts to go downhill again, and it's a cycle that keeps repeating, and it is draining all of your energy. Really, it kind of drains you. And then you do more for them because you start doing even more for them, basically, until you just don't exist anymore.
yeah, that exhaustion though that comes with giving yourself over
Yeah.
and over. Um, So funny thing with my experience, and I didn't blame it on the relationship. I couldn't figure out what was going on. But for a year, I had really bad stomach issues that nobody could figure out. It caused me to have IBS, and I was in bed every day. I was exhausted. I was tired. I couldn't give myself anymore. I couldn't give myself to my kids and be a good parent like I saw in my head. They were taking care of me. And that's
Mm.
unfortunate because I know that's probably some kind of trauma that they're going to have to work through when they get older. But essentially what happened was is I was so stressed that I had all this inflammation in my body and it kept me in bed. I was living off of vegetable broth. I couldn't hold anything down. I was going
Yeah.
to several doctor's appointments. There was a point in the relationship where the doctors thought I had breast cancer. So I had to go through that. And then I was told I had breast cancer. And then I was like, no, this is not my reality. I do not have breast cancer. This is not my reality. So I went and got looked at by somebody else and they said, no, you don't have that. You have just two other breast diseases and it's fine. It's not life threatening. And I was like, well, that was a big difference. Did I hop timelines here? Like, what? What?
Yeah.
But my inflammation, like I kept getting earaches all the time. Like I had my ears would swell up. It was almost like my body was telling me, don't listen to him because of all
Yeah.
this stuff. Mine was very emotional. Now the kids got both emotional abuse and physical abuse. I only witnessed the emotional abuse, but like the way my body responded to him, it was almost like it was trying to protect itself, but it was exhausting me and really
Yeah.
draining me to where I just couldn't do anything. I couldn't be a person. Um, I felt very lifeless in that. And that's something that I hear that happens with a lot of people where they get really sick, where they're constantly throwing up, or they lose a bunch of weight and they don't understand why they are.
I
The
lost
doctors
tons
can't.
of weight. I was super skinny when I got back to Belgium in 2018. I was really, really skinny. And I'm skinny now, but but I was even skinnier. But and everyone's like, "Oh my God, you are way too thin." It's because I couldn't eat. I couldn't eat from all the stress. Yeah.
So mine happened opposite. So I was really small when the relationship started. I think I was like about 110 pounds when we first started dating. And then when I got really sick and I kept telling the doctors, I was like, why am I gaining so much weight? I'm not eating. I can't eat. I'm so
Yeah.
sick all the time. And they said, you've been in starvation mode for so long. Anything that you put in your body is just grabbing a hold of it. And you have so much inflammation, it's probably a lot of inflammation going on in your body too. So once you get your gut health regulated,
Hmm.
then you might start seeing a change. And I think during the relationship, I gained about 50 pounds. Um, and now that I'm out of it, I'm starting to I'm not doing really anything different. I'm not really changing my diet. I'm just, me, just doing what I can. And my body's starting to change again. It's starting to go back to how it was. And
Hmm.
I don't have IBS flare ups. My ears aren't swollen. I mean, I feel like
Yeah.
I can really physically see the healing process, not only my thought process, but it's also showing in my reality, in my physical being.
Hmm. Yeah, because your body holds on to energy. It is like the last layer of your being that's going to be holding on to certain energies. And I could tell because last year was a big year for me when it came to releasing still stuff that my body was holding on to from a relationship that I left in 2017. And
Mm-hmm.
last year, I was still releasing stuff that I thought mentally was already released, energetically was already dealt with, archived, released. And last year, my body was releasing the last little bits of, well, I still have some post traumatic stress, but it is very manageable. But like a year ago, I couldn't sit with my back towards a door. I had to face the door. I could not sit with my back to the door, stuff like that. And right
Wow.
now, I could easily go sit somewhere and have my back towards the door. It wouldn't be a problem anymore. Stuff like that.
That's really good though. Like I know it maybe sound like a small victory, but that's like a huge victory because the mental process and the way you have to change and rewire your brain just to do something like
Hmm.
that, it's a huge celebration for yourself. Um,
Yeah.
I know one of my triggers that I've recently have experienced after this relationship is I'm already like empathetic anyway. Like when I walk in a room, like I could just, everyone's emotions. I have to really be careful because I could take on that whole energy and feel like
Yeah.
super overwhelmed. So, one of my things is like I work in in an environment where it's mostly men, and a lot of men, it when they get angry, it triggers me. So no matter who's mad at what, even if it's not directed at me, I feel just my heart sink into my stomach, everything knots up. I feel like I'm going to throw up. So my trigger is if anybody just raises their voice just a little bit or changes their tone, I'm completely triggered in that.
Hmm.
So I want to run away. I want to leave work. And I do. I'll get up and I'll be like, I'm taking my lunch break and I'll be gone for like an hour or more just to like calm my own emotions down so I can go back to work, even though it had nothing to do with me. And it's not like I'm scared of these guys because I'm not, but I was very much scared of who I was with. So
Hmm.
it's very triggering to deal with negative emotions coming from people and even
Yeah.
just being surrounded by them. So I
Yeah.
get that.
Because
Like,
it's, again, it's the body that is responding. Mentally, you can tell yourself 500 times, this is not the same person. This is a different situation. Your body hasn't caught up yet with the new reality. It's still
yeah,
working on that, basically.
yes, yeah. I feel like it's a slow progress, but you're gonna get there if you really just start making yourself aware and pay attention to these and you let yourself feel and don't try to push like these emotions away. Just let them come up. Don't think about it. Don't think about I feel like once if I start thinking about like why am I feeling like this instead of just allowing myself to feel, I'll
Hmm.
start triggering more emotions.
Yeah.
Because your thoughts, trigger your emotions and your responses. I feel like you hang on to it a lot longer. So if you just let yourself have that time just to feel and not think, um, I feel like it leaves you quicker and you're more likely to heal faster. That's just been my experience anyway.
Hmm.
But
Yeah. Because I think a lot of people that leave a situation like that, they go through a phase of being very self-critical, judging themselves. And that's why whenever I have a client that has just left a situation like this, or somebody that is trying to leave a situation like this, the first thing I tell them, it was never you. It was never your fault. You did not do anything to deserve this. You did not do anything to cause this. You didn't do anything to make them mad. If only you would have not done this or that, I would not have had to get mad at you. How many times have you heard that? Probably a lot
yeah,
of times, because I have. And
yeah,
we think, oh, if I would have done this, if I would not have done that, maybe he wouldn't have gotten angry at me. It's never your fault. Never.
yeah. A big thing that I was blaming myself for, this is probably like my hardest thing to overcome to detach myself was the fact that, he was an army vet and he had these illnesses. He had a TBI, a traumatic brain injury, and it was to the frontal lobe. So, sure enough, it's funny that narcissists have frontal lobe damage, whether his was created in childhood or created during, his deployments. It doesn't matter. I thought it did. I thought it really mattered because I'm like, well, maybe he's not a narcissist. And it's like, even if he wasn't a narcissist, the behavior of a TBI is the same behavior of a narcissist. The
Mm-hmm.
spouse gets the same abuse.
Yeah.
It's, you can call it what you want, but abuse in the end is just abuse. Like,
Yeah.
you don't have to label it. So I had to really tell myself, like, I wanted to support him in his mental health because, I also have kids that have their own things they deal with, like ADHD. I have my ADHD kid also has Tourette's. And I'm like, well, I want to be supportive. I'm always going to be supportive to them. Why can't I make that vow to always be supportive to my husband? Why is he not treating me the way that he should? If I just give more, understand more,
Yeah.
learn about him more, I can be better.
Exactly.
And it's like, I really had to tell myself that it didn't matter what I did. He's who he is, no
Yeah.
matter how
Mm-hmm.
he got there, no matter if it is a mental illness. There's only so much that you can do before you just wither yourself away and you're
Yeah.
nothing. And then that relationship is if you have kids. Um, for my experience, I have kids and I was like, my kids are going to be left with no good example. We're both going to just be nothing and they're not going to,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to end up taking care of us. And it's like, if I just pull away and can heal from this, then I could, be the better one. And maybe even he will start being a better parent from the separation, which in all honesty, he has been a
Mm-hmm.
better parent. He's made my life complete hell, but for our daughter, he has been better. He doesn't
Yeah.
spank her anymore. She absolutely loves him now, which I'm grateful for. But that was a big, huge thing I had to get over was it's okay to not support somebody with their mental
Yeah.
illness when it causes so much damage for you and everyone else around you.
Mm-hmm. And
So,
I think in my situation, the fact that I left actually made him see that he had a problem and
yeah,
that something seriously needed to change if he wanted to be a better person and also be a valuable father figure in my child's life. So, me leaving, again, it's also like what you said, you want to stay with them, you have kids with them, you don't just want to give up on this marriage. But if you are almost like you don't exist anymore in your mind, you are completely numb, you don't exist anymore, then something needs to change because it's especially when you have children and you see the effect that it's having on them. And then you kind of fast forward into the future 10 years, 20 years, you think like I can't do this for 20 more years. And then
yeah,
you realize he's not going to change. When you realize they're not going to change, then you're going to have to be the one that makes changes in this relationship, changes the
mhm,
dynamic by leaving. And that is actually setting a boundary out of love.
it is. I remember one morning I woke up, I had this dream that was super triggering to me, and it had to do with an ex that I had. And this was an ex that treated me really good. We had a really good friendship, and I had this dream of all this love that I was not receiving in my marriage. And I woke up and I was like, I am going to die in this situation, this loveless
Yeah.
situation. I'm going to die here and I'm never going to get to experience that again. And it's really hard to stay, open with your emotions when you are in that situation. You want to like just close up everything. And it's hard to love. And I was just like, I don't care if I ever fall in love or be in a romantic relationship again, but I want to be able to express that I love. And he was completely non-receiving of any kind of love or affection that I could give him. So it wasn't only that I wasn't receiving it, I wasn't able to express it. And I was just crying when I woke up. I had
Yeah.
like the worst day ever in my emotions because I was like, I'm going to die here. And that was like my reality check. And was like my click. where I was like, I need to start making changes now. Like I knew that I needed to make changes, but I really need to start making changes now. And we had a big event. I don't even want to call it an event because it was terrible. There was this big, huge situation with my kids where abuse took place. It was really hard, and I tried to come up with an exit plan. And it was like, no matter what kind of exit plan that he was smart. No matter what I tried to like do it, he would sabotage it. Like, but he would do it in a way like he wouldn't let me know that he knew I was onto something.
Yeah.
Because I would start trying to like save up money and take more money out and then make plans to like move out of state or hey, let's sell our house. So that happened. But as soon as he got wind of that, he took our house off the market. I was isolated again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was really hard to escape. But a lot of things just started clicking in the end, especially when I started recording everything. And
Yeah.
it's hard to stay, like, or it's hard to leave, but it's harder to stay. And
Yeah,
I know,
that's the whole thing that made me leave. It is super hard to leave, but it's going to be even harder when if I decide to stay.
yeah, because I didn't want to look back at my life and I had nothing to offer. I had nothing to like give my kids because I myself was just being drained and I wasn't able to care for them and share love with them that I wanted to. Like my relationships with my kids were being destroyed, absolutely
Yeah.
destroyed. Um, during the during the situation where the abuse took place, I wasn't allowed to comfort my kid. I had to stay away from him. I couldn't check on him. I had to listen to him scream. Um, it was a really helpless place to be. And I could not do that. Like, I hate that that happened. Luckily, that big, huge thing that happened was the only time that something really big, you know? Um, I mean, there was other abuse that happened physically, but this time was really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And just to be so helpless and your kids thinking that you don't love them because you can't step in. And I
Yeah.
thought that if I stayed, that I would be able to protect them better, but I couldn't. Even being in there, like I couldn't. Um, and that's like the guilt that I have to work through, knowing that I felt like I abandoned my kids in that moment, but the whole relationship, I was abandoning myself as well.
Yeah.
So um, it was, yeah, it's hard to leave. It really is. There's so much emotional things that happen. You may live with some trauma your entire life, trying to work through it. Um,
Yeah.
but
And it's
but it does.
exactly those moments when things just escalate. And I have a few of those examples myself where I am observing all of these crazy scenarios taking place, and I'm in this numb state of dissociation, and simultaneously I'm seeing all of this happening in front of me, these insane scenarios, and I'm like, is this my life? Am I in this room? Is this happening? Is this happening to me? And I have had similar situations where I couldn't do anything about a situation when we were in a vehicle multiple times.
Mhm.
There's a reason
Yeah.
I don't have a driver's license, and it is because I have post-traumatic stress from being in a car with him. I cannot drive
Oh,
because
wow.
if I sit next to anybody and they ask me to start driving, I will freeze and I will start hyperventilating. So
Mm.
and there were situations where my daughter was in the car and it was really dangerous and I was driving and I was being screamed at and stuff like that. And it's just insane. You think, how could I endanger my child? But it you have to like let go of the guilt. You have to let go of the guilt because this is not something that like people will also say, oh, why did you ever marry this person if you knew they were like this? Because they are not like that when you meet them. They build
Mm-mm.
this up real slow, really
Oh,
slowly.
yeah.
They will introduce the manipulation really slowly. They will introduce the gaslighting, the blame shifting really slowly until you are in a trauma bond and you cannot
Mm.
get out as easily. And it's like you said, you can't just leave. And it's funny that you mentioned the dreams, because that is one of the things that started happening to me. I started having dreams that were a complete contrast, different reality than the world that I was waking up into. I was waking up in constantly having to walk on eggshells. I was waking up every day in having to kind of gauge, okay, what's his mood? Can I talk to him? Should I avoid him? Is there going to be screaming? What's going to happen? Is there going to be manic episodes, or is there going to be depressive episodes? And I would have dreams of somebody, you and I know who we're talking about, that was in a bed sleeping, and I'm like, who is this person? What? Why am I feeling good? This is not my life. And then I woke
Yeah.
up, and I woke up in 2015, 16, like, huh? And it's weird. It was so weird. And then you realize
Yeah.
this is not happiness. I am this miserable. I need to get out of this situation. And
Yeah.
it's stuff like that that makes you realize dreams, or like these really crazy events where you're the observer and you see this is insanity. My life is crazy. I cannot do this for 10 or 20 more years.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, the dreams got really vivid for me. Almost there was certain times where I didn't even realize if I was sleeping or not because they were so vivid. But then, you would check back into reality and it's like, oh, I'm in hell.
Yeah,
Great.
exactly.
Great, I'm in hell. Or am I just dreaming? Because I don't even know anymore what's reality and not. And I feel like a lot of that when they tell you like you're going crazy, like you can't like
Hmm.
not tell yourself you're going crazy because you have all these things that's happening. You're having all these vivid dreams and it's hard to distinguish. So like my best advice is record your situation so nothing can tell you different. Your emotions can't sway you different. They can't tell you any different. I know after our relationship, like he tried to get back. He has a girlfriend now, and this is the first time he's actually left me alone. So thank goodness
Hmm.
for that. It's been a few weeks. It's been peaceful. It's been nice. So there was times where he would leave me alone and then he would come back. But one of the things that he would come to me is try to manipulate. Like we had a really good relationship. Our
Yeah.
communication was off. And I was like, well, for me, communication's everything. So if communication's off, then there shouldn't be like any point. Like I talk way too much and I like to
Hmm.
get really deep and be vulnerable. Um, but like he would just say, it's not that bad. I didn't beat you. I didn't abuse you. And he's like,
Yeah.
and he'll tell me like, oh, I've dated this girl and her ex husband used to beat her and we had such a good relationship. I really wish that we could work it out for the family. Like, say stuff like that. And I was just like, I was already too detached at this point where I'm like, this is not him. Like he's just trying to um make himself look better or manipulate me to pull me back in. Like I know
Yeah.
this game too well. I can
Hmm.
see it.
It's the hot and
So,
cold game.
yes, yes. So you really can't like see the person as um they're I really don't like to play on duality, but it was one of those things for me where I was looking at him. I was like, well, he had this bad time. Okay, he did something bad. It made me feel really bad. He didn't apologize or ever take responsibility. But there's a good side to his personality. Like he's funny and like he gets me. He meets my needs financially. If I want something, he'll
Yeah.
go out and get it, which is something that I didn't have. He knew that. He knew I grew up very poor, and he knew the situation I was in when he started dating me, and it was like gift after gift after gift. Look at all the stuff I can give you. He bought
It's
a
the
half million
grooming.
dollar.
That's
Yeah,
something that we have not discussed yet. Love
yeah,
bombing and grooming. This is very
yeah.
typical. And a lot of people, they will romanticize, like it gets this Disney level of, oh, yeah, you meet this person and they're giving you all these gifts and they're love bombing you and all this stuff. But that is a major red flag. If that person completely has no life of their own anymore, if they don't have any interests besides courting you, grooming you, preparing you for this future with them, and they have nothing going on besides that, they have no interests, passions of their own, and they are all about making sure that like it's kind of stalkerish almost. And if you are somebody that has an anxious attachment style, or sometimes even a fearful avoidant attachment style, and you really want that validation, then you are going to be, oh yes, okay, give me all this stuff, give me all this stuff. But that's how they reel you in, and after that, they will gradually start manipulating you. The hot and cold behavior begins. The trauma bond is starting to get established. And that's how it begins.
Yeah, that's exactly how it began for me. So before I knew anything about attachment styles, um, looking back, I was anxious. I had a very anxious attachment style. So the red flags were always there, but I just kind of, they were so subtle that I just kind of like pushed them away. So
Mm-hmm.
I remember one time, like he literally like got out of my car on the highway. We were only dating for a few weeks, and he like walked somewhere, and he was like mad. Um, he's just like, I'll just walk home, and we were in a different state. I'm like, you're gonna walk home in a different state? So I was like looking for him, and I was so anxious. I was like,
Yeah,
he's gonna leave me. He's gonna leave me. Like, he
exactly.
he kept me in the future. The whole entire relationship, he kept me in the future, where it's like, we're going to do this. We're going to plan for this. It was always something going on. I'm going to get you this. He bought me I love cats. Okay. And I really love the African serval. Well, he moves me to a state where we can have African servals, and he gets me one when I told him that I didn't think the relationship was going to work. And I think that we need to start considering something else. Well, then he would take me out of the now, put me into the future.
Yeah.
Let's get this cat. I just pulled this loan out. Let's go get this cat that you want. Let like let's always make plans for the future. Like, he did that all the way up until the end. So a
Mm-hmm.
whole lot of love bombing, but he would never allow me to be in the present. He would never allow me to be in the present with my emotions. Once I had some kind of emotion that was other than being content with him, tables would flip. Well, what about my emotions? What about
Yeah.
me? Well, you do this, and what about that time that you did this and said that? So yeah, the love bombing was initially what drew me in the beginning. I was able to dismiss the red flags, even that crazy event where he gets out of my car on the highway, you know. So I was just like, okay, well, he really wants a future with me. He's pretty serious about me. Nobody's ever been serious about me where they want a life with me to plan for a
Mm-hmm.
future. So this must be a good thing.
Yeah. And I think what a lot of people, and also just Hollywood and our society, they portray somebody being serious about you, or somebody really wanting a future with you, as, oh, they're going to act all dramatic, over the top. They're going to show you that they like, no, that is super toxic. That is completely insane, really. You have to look for balanced behavior where people apply self-love, they apply emotional regulation, they don't fly off the handle when you say something that they don't like. They don't act dramatic. They don't act all crazy. They actually can control their emotions and have a normal, calm conversation. It is not when you say, I need distance, that they are like, but I need to be with you. I need you, blah, blah, blah. It is
Yeah.
that they then will say, I understand. I am here when you want to talk. That is an
Yeah.
emotionally mature person. That is somebody that is showing you that they are ready for a serious commitment. And it is not the image that a lot of young girls are spoon fed with like,
Yeah.
oh, they have to show you all this dramatic behavior. No, that is actually a bunch of red flags.
Yeah, it is. And I wish, like, it's hard to say I wish or I regret anything just because I'm so much more aware now. And I think that it was necessary to an extent, but all the things that happened, I feel like maybe life could have been more gentle with me.
Yeah.
Like, universe, why so much? Why so much damage all at once? But yeah, like I feel like it's just it's a very hard thing to go through and be honest with yourself that, hey, this is what you're going through. Like, you don't want to, like, part of you goes into like this denial.
Mm-hmm.
No, this isn't it, because he shows this
Exactly.
and he's this to me when he's, this good person. And I had to
Mm-hmm.
take away that good and bad duality view, like, oh well, he's a good person and he's not, he's doing good now. He just had, like a bad day or something. It's not just a bad day with him, it's who they are. And once I was
Mm-hmm.
able to see him for who he really was initially uh where I could start just moving forward, because I couldn't when I was like, oh, he's being good to me and he's doing this, and oh, but he's actually showing empathy. Like, he doesn't ever show empathy. He's showing empathy. It's a mask. He learned it off
Yeah,
of you. You're an empathetic.
exactly.
He learned it off of you. He's just showing it back.
Mm-hmm.
So once I started telling myself and catching him when he was doing that, um, that was it made it a little bit easier for me to pull away. But that was a really hard thing to face and be like, stop lying to yourself. You're lying to
Yeah.
yourself.
Because that's what you
But
do, because they are lying to you, they are gaslighting you, they are brainwashing. They are
yeah.
literally brainwashing you. So you start brainwashing yourself. And then when you get out of this relationship, you have to undo all of the brainwashing, the entire programming, because that is what it is, programming that somebody else did to you. You have to completely reprogram yourself. And that's why
hmm
I love working with affirmations or
Yes.
angelic clearing statements that I use, and that's how I left. I left by reprogramming my mind with
hmm
affirmations and by starting to work with angels. And I
Yeah.
was able to see, okay, I need to leave. And by reprogramming these stories that I was
hmm
running in my mind.
Yes. I feel like if you're in the spiritual community, it is a blessing to reach out to your guides and help you, see it for what it really is. I know that I did a lot of praying, like, what am I dealing with? Show me what I'm dealing with. And I know I
Mm-hmm.
say, like, I wish the universe was a little bit more gentle with me, but in all I was asking them, show me what I'm dealing with, and
Exactly.
they were showing me over and over, like,
Yeah.
this is what you're dealing with, and I know it's a lot, but this is the reality. You asked, now you're receiving. What are
Yeah.
you going to do with it? And I feel like that's really helpful to do those affirmations and definitely get
Mhm.
really close and in tune with your intuition and your higher self,
Yeah,
so
and
you
I
can
think
align. Yeah.
we go through these things because we are meant to help others. We're going to be magnetizing clients, people in general, or in our surroundings to us that are going to crave this medicine that we have. It's a soul energetic medicine that you and I have that we can then share with others. So whenever people are like, "Oh yeah, what you're talking about all this stuff again?" Yeah, because
it's,
I
it's
can talk
funny.
about it from a place of I healed it, I overcame it, and so did you. So
Yeah.
before we end, what advice would you give people on how to really take care of themselves and what to do if they want to leave somebody, a narcissist, or anybody that has a personality disorder?
This is such a good question. I'm going to answer this with my own experience. So, um, what I did is I acknowledged how I was feeling, and I had to pull myself out of the reality. So basically, I did dissociate and numb myself, but I could see it for what it was. And I had the evidence of video recording to look back on. And I had to start valuing myself. So I started pouring in self-love to myself. And that wasn't necessarily what do I need to change about myself or anything like that. It was like, no, what do I enjoy? Start pouring more of that. Like, what do I enjoy? And I started feeling better about myself. I still do that. I think that's something that you can just have lifelong and it will help you. But I had to pull myself away and start creating this identity for myself. And it was so difficult at first. Like, I was confused. I didn't really know how to do it. I was journaling. I stopped taking him personally. I told myself everything that he would tell me. I started setting boundaries. I said, I don't believe you. That was my first thing that I started doing to kind of stand up for myself. And when you do that, be prepared. Really be prepared, because they're not going to take it well. They're not.
They're going to retaliate.
Yes, they are. But as long as you could just be like, well, I don't believe you, or I don't remember it happening that way. Well, that's your truth.
Oh my God, I don't remember it going this way. I can't believe that is.
Yeah. So I
recognize it.
So I started validating myself. I did look, to talk to other people about, hey, what do you think about this? This is what happened. Or I would show them something like a video. I wouldn't just show anybody. It had to be somebody that I really trusted. Like, what do you think about that? They're like, you're being gaslit. Like, what are you doing in that situation? And, but so definitely support your most trusted people. Even if you're isolated, find that one person, even if it's a stranger online, even if it's a life coach, even if it's your tarot reader, find that one person to look at it from an outside perspective, validate you. If you need external validation, that's fine in this situation. I feel like there's a certain point where you're going to have to start validating yourself, though. But if you need that to kind of kickstart you a little bit, then get the external validation. So when I started, saying, well, I don't believe you. That's not me. I don't think of myself that way. It was empowering. He could tell that I was detaching from him. And even though it was really messy, it was back and forth. Okay, I feel really empowered. Now I don't. Now I feel empowered. It was really back and forth. So what I would suggest is just keep trying to stay valid in what you're doing. Keep reminding yourself that the reality is not happening the way that they're trying to make it happen for you, because they're so good at that. They're so good at changing your whole reality. I remember a point in the relationship where I didn't find out that he had a daughter until later on. And then he told me, well, I told you about that situation. And I was like, I don't remember that. And he's like, well, you were probably tired, falling asleep, or you probably just weren't listening to me like always. You weren't listening to me.
You would have remembered, I think.
Oh, I would so remember. And I heard that a lot all the time. You just don't listen to me. It's like, no, I'm listening to you. I just don't want to do what you want me to do, or I don't want to have your same opinion. So that was a big thing. He hated that I had a different opinion than him. But yeah, so your support, get your recordings, validate yourself, and start making an exit plan. The exit plan is the hardest part and the most dangerous part. It is the most dangerous part you can do. It is terrifying. You're going to be scared of your life. Depending on what kind of level of narcissism that you're dealing with, some people lose their lives over it. When I was in my divorce, my attorney told me, I've lost clients over this situation. You don't need to get any weapons. Yeah, they're like, get the weapons out of your house that you have. Get them out. I was like, okay, and move somebody in with you. So you can do that too. If you don't feel safe, move somebody in with you. Or I guess slowly start moving your things out into some other house. So that's what I did. My mom and sister got a place. I started slowly moving things out. But I think the most important thing is you really have to be in this mentally. And before anything physical starts to happen, you really have to start the rewiring process of your brain and validate yourself. Tell yourself you're not crazy. Tell that just see them for who they are.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good
That's all
start.
really good advice. And yeah, the exit plan is definitely, you have to have a completely waterproof exit plan. And what I would like to add is have a sponsor that holds you accountable
Oh
for
yeah.
your behavior, but also somebody that knows your plan, somebody that
Yes.
knows all the details. And in my case, that was my mom. She knew
Hmm.
everything. She had an attorney on the whole thing. Um, and yeah,
Wow.
and I had already read, like, it is the most dangerous point of leaving this relationship is when you actually leave or you're about to leave. You have to make sure that you
Yeah.
have control over your emotions, that you do not get swept up in their ups and downs, that you have coping skills to
Yeah.
regulate your emotions, meditation. I don't know, go for a walk every day, listen to affirmations, do
Yeah.
something that calms you down so that you can handle this
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, and even better, like, because all those coping mechanisms that you mentioned are healthy. And I know that even some people that I've worked with, they kind of do the opposite and they turn to like worst case scenario. And if you can just make sure that you have those coping skills that you're going to use and don't give yourself an option to do anything else. So, one of my things, like when ever I would get upset before this whole relationship is I would, grab a bottle of wine and just
Yeah,
like drink it by myself. Like that's not going to help you. It
no,
only helps, it's not going to help you. It doesn't heal. It just causes more damage and trauma to yourself. So all those things that you mentioned are super helpful. I
mhm.
would I would have people, write those down, write those coping skills down and just like have a list handy. And whenever you feel like you need something, don't resort to the negative and make it worse. Do something more positive. And that I know it's super difficult because
It
we
is
want those
difficult.
quick fixes. We want
Yeah,
those quick
especially when
fixes.
your brain is in this fight or flight survival state. It is very
Yeah,
hard to then choose the healthy option.
it is. It is. And it's easier to choose the the other option.
Self-destructive
It's
option,
yeah.
basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot easier to choose that because it's quick and you get that instant, I'm not exactly sure if it's like dopamine, oxytocin, or
Hmm.
whatever it is that it
Yeah.
gives you, but it's also it's like that trauma bond all over again.
Yeah.
You're in that trauma bond because when you're in this like narcissistic relationship, it's literally an addiction. You become
Hmm.
addicted to this person.
Yeah.
So don't trade one bad habit for another bad habit. Definitely keep your things that you like to do that help you relieve stress and do them.
Hmm.
They're harder to do, but they last. It's a
Yeah.
good practice to have.
And what you're going
So
to do when you do that is you're going to alchemize all of this stuff that you've gone through. And that's why my podcast is named The Alchemy of Love, because that is
yeah,
how you can turn this negative experience, this traumatic experience, into gold, into a
yeah,
lesson, into yeah, it's something like, okay, people say, would you rewind time and go back in time and do it all over again? Or would you say, no, I'll skip that? No, I would do it all over again, because, okay, it was horrible, but I would not be who I am today if I
oh
didn't
yeah.
go through that whole experience.
I tell myself that so much. Those exact words actually are like my thought process because it's like when I talk about it, people are like, I'm so sorry you had to go through that. I was like, I'm not the victim in this. It
Hmm.
happened. It happened for me. It
Yeah,
did, it
and
might have
you
happened to
wouldn't be
me, but it
yourself.
happened for me. Yeah, it happened for me, and I'm this person that you like and that you enjoy because that happened to me. I'm able
Hmm.
to give something else, put
Yeah.
something else out there in the world for that. So yeah, I completely agree with that. I feel like we're just so similar with this, and so many
Yeah.
other people probably are too.
I think we're gonna have to do a part two. We'll have to.
Yeah.
Well, you know what we'll do? We'll send this out into the world. We'll see if anybody
Okay.
has any questions. Then they can reach out to us, and then we can schedule a part two. If you would like to find out more information, go check out the description where you can find all links. If you have any questions about any of the topics that were brought up in this podcast episode, reach out, and know that a first session with me for new clients is at 50% off. And definitely go check out the other episodes that I already have online, and stay tuned for more episodes coming up. Bye bye.